one unit from one of the courses that I am teaching, Echo 203, Introductory Econometrics, and the topic within this course that I will be discussing is time series regression analysis. Now, there are a few learning outcomes that I would like to achieve with this presentation, and that are: define regression models, define what are time series based regression models, among others, identify steps to estimate a regression model. Now, you may be asking yourselves, what is regression analysis? Now, it is basically a statistical equation, nothing more. In statistical modeling, regression analysis is a statistical process for estimating the relationships among variables. It includes many techniques for modeling and analyzing several variables. For example, when the relationship is between one dependent variable and many independent variables. Now, regression analysis is a statistical equation that has to have some underlying theory. Why? We need a theory to first of all make a mathematical equation such as this: y is equal to mx plus c. From that mathematical equation, we can derive our statistical equation that would be given as y is equal to mx plus c plus that e which stands for the error term. In statistics, we are of course estimating equation, so there will be a difference between the actual value of that y and the forecasted or estimated values of the y, which is why we have the error term. Now, we need to have an underlying economic theory, in our case it is economic theory, to justify why a particular equation would look as such. There are many theories in economics. For example, one that we have in growth theory is called the solo growth model. The solo growth model tells us that there are two basic inputs such as capital and labor, and these are important determinants of real GDP. So in that case, GDP or real GDP would become the y variable or the dependent variable, and we would not have one x but two. We would have two x's. That x1 would be the capital stock and x2 would be the labor stock. Now, it is important to always remember that to have a proper regression model, we need to first have an underlying theory which guides us on how we expect the relationship between the variables to be. Now, in time series analysis, which is the major focus of this lecture, there are three components to it. In time series analysis, we have one country with many variables over many years. That is what differentiates it from two other types of regressions, which are known as panel regressions and cross-sectional regressions. In panel regressions, we have many countries over many variables over many years. Cross-sectional regression has many countries with many variables but only 1 year. Now, we turn to some applications of regression analysis. Now, regression analysis are used mainly for forecasting or for validating economic theory, and it is also used widely in empirical research that relates to the use of real life data. Okay, now we turn our attention to the main focus of this lesson: estimating a regression. Now, estimating a basic regression may entail these 5 steps. Step 1 would be to identify and locate the data to be used within a model specified by economic theory. meaning you need to know some theory first before you go ahead and specify your regression model. Step 2 would be to transform the data that you find using natural logarithms or using ratios. There are many ways to transform the data. We are transforming the data to ensure linearity occurs at all times, since we are estimating linear regressions. Step 3. Estimate a suitable regression. In this introductory class, that would be an ordinary least squares estimate. Now, step 4 and step 5 do not directly relate to estimating a regression. Estimating a regression is just for the first 3 steps, step 1, step 2, and step 3. Steps 4 and 5 largely relate to correcting any diagnostic issues that may arise. So, steps 4 and 5 are used to check if our equation is good and acceptable or not. So, we will discuss steps 1, 2, and 3 within this set of slides, and step 4 and 5 would be for follow-up lectures. Now, step 1. Identify and locate secondary data to be used within a model specified within economic theory. Now, we cannot just get data from anywhere, especially on the internet. We have to ensure that the data that we are getting is credible and reliable. Some reliable sources are that is widely recommended for economic empirical research or for your assignments is the World Bank's WDI database. This includes for all countries and it is available given. The other website that I am listing here gives you specialized data on energy consumption, such as renewable energy consumption, renewable electricity consumption per country per year for all countries of the world. It also gives us petroleum used per year, and more so, it gives us what type of petroleum was used within a particular year. So these are some credible sources that we can rely on for our data. Now, one common aspect of these, how to check the credibility of a website, we have to look at their domain. In this case, for the World Bank, it is .org, and for the International Energy Statistics, it is .gov. So these can be relied upon. Alternatively, relevant data could be found at the respective country's Bureau of Statistics. Now, step 2. This is a really easy step which can be done in Microsoft Excel. We have to transform the data using natural logs. It is an optional step. If you feel the need to do it, you could go ahead with it. If you do not feel the need to do it, it is fine. All we have to do is take the natural log of whatever ES data you have in Microsoft Excel. This can also be done in statistical softwares. Now we go to step 3, the actual estimation. Pardon me. Now, we must estimate a suitable regression. Now, this could be done using specialized softwares such as eViews, Stata, or R. You could also estimate a suitable regression within Microsoft Excel through the add-ins options that you have in Excel. However, the estimates would be comparable for all. However, you will not get all the bells and whistles in Microsoft Excel that you would get with these specialized softwares. Now, I would recommend eViews 8 or its later version eViews 9 because they have the simplest interface. They are, however, paid softwares. If you prefer a free software, then I would recommend R. It is completely free to download and to use, however, is a bit more difficult since you would have to learn some form of coding language to actually use R. So in the next slide, I will show you some estimates that we get from eViews 8. Now, we could see that ln in this, if you would see the top left corner of this box, you have the dependent variable, and that is ln y. Now, ln stands for natural log and y stands for GDP, real GDP. ln k as the explanatory variable stands for the natural log of capital stock. And this is estimated over the sample 1980 to 2014. 1980 to 2014. And you have the coefficients of your capital stock and your constant term. For the capital stock, we say that it is 0.82, whereas for your constant term or C, we are saying that it is 0.95. And using basic hypothesis testing that we've learned of before, we can roughly say that both of these variables are highly significant. If we would look at the probability value, these are less than %. These coefficients significant. Now, this is what a basic output from eViews 8 or 9 should look like after you estimate your equation. Thank you. With that being said, this wraps up this lecture on how to estimate a regression. Are there any questions? If you have them, you may ask now. Thank you.